Before you start, Jason, I'd just like to say this has been a grueling 3.5 months, and the county and the city, and everybody said, worked very close together on this. And Jason, Steve Millay, and Joe Baird and Jim Gabbard have worked very hard to numbers and to look to see where the money's coming from. We were impressed with the cooperation from each government, and I just want to say it's really brought us close together, and they've done a wonderful job. And Jason, I'll turn it over to you, and you can let them know what we all came up with.
All right. Good morning, commissioners and council members. Once again, I'm Jason Brown, County Budget Director. I have some news for you. I have a PowerPoint presentation with me. Do promise I'll try to be brief and make this as painless as possible. Basically, want to lay out some of the high pointer about the project, and some of the repetition for a lot, some of the history and everything, but just through the history and everything that has transpired. Be a little bit about Piper Aircraft. Piper currently employs has 1,029 employees. They are the largest private sector in Indian River County, fourth over. The average wage of the employees, based on the economic study done, is a little over $39,000 a year. That compares favorably to the county's average salary of about $32,592 a year, and the right average is $31,000 and change. And so the average wage of the Piper employees is higher than those state county averages by a considerable amount. And according to the economic study done to Washington Economics Group for this, their total economic income is $518 million per year. The labor income per year that's paid to Piper employees, $48 million. Can we advance that's to the next? Okay, there we go. And to the next. And they're proposing the Piper jet operations that would require about 100 jobs. So this is really of an employer retention and an attraction project all in one, because we're trying to number one private employer in the county and also allow them to expand their operations. According to the economic report, they pay about based on the economic activity attributed, there's about $4 million in local taxes paid due to that activity. Another thing, they have knowledge-intensive, high-tech jobs, and those are a way to sustainable, high-income jobs. If you look at Piper compared to top private employers, you've got, it's more like Walmart, Publix, things like that, and so they're a high knowledge, good type of employer that you're looking for in economic development. Total value added, the direct impact of $47 million, and if you take the indirect and the induced benefits, it's $118 million a year. And by way of a little history, we were here a couple months ago, and both the boards voted to basically move forward with an incentive package to Piper and work out details. In that time, city staff and county staff worked with the help of the Chamber of Commerce, been in contact with Piper's site consultant. I'd like to say we've in the county staff and the Chamber, we've worked very well in this project. It's been to work with those guys, and couldn't have been more cooperative effort. One of the things that happened in the intervening couple of months here was all the tax reform talk that happened in Tallahassee, and I'll try and stay off my soapbox about those tax reform legislation, but I want to go over that a little bit just because it presents a framework of our financial situation, where you folks, the elected officials, will have to make a financial decision based on those changes, and those tax reforms are going to affect everything. Basically, as you know, there was a special session called for June 12th, 2nd at ends tomorrow. There is a draft bill out there, hasn't been finalized. We've got another day, so nobody's yet until after tomorrow. But basically, the legislation that's out there right now requires up to a cut for the current year for cities and counties. The county is in the 5%, or will have to cut 5% from the current year revenues, and the city will have to cut 7% from current year revenues in order to meet those requirements. And so this basically really limits the revenues available for Piper, as these incentives will impact both of our funds. And the first phase, rollbacks, there are ways to override those rollbacks, but depending on how much the revenues are increased, there are different thresholds that all the governing bodies must meet. By a majority vote of 2/3 of the local board, you can exceed that rollback, but that is only up to the rollback rate. If you go beyond the rollback rate, you need a unanimous vote of the elected body to go on that, to go to exceed the 2006-2007 millage rate. You have to go vote a referendum. So all local governments, the city of Vero in River County, are in a situation where, in a declining control environment, the amount that can levy in taxes, the amount that the boards, any local government can levy in taxes, and it's going down 1.9%. I think it was maybe 2.5%. The tax roll going down for the city of Vero. So either can override those respective 5% and 7% cuts. We can only go up to a 2% decrease based on the estimated tax roll right now, without a vote of the public. Then this tax reform is a two-step process. That's the impact on the next fiscal year that we're currently working on budgets for. The second phase of the tax reform is the super exemption. That will go on the ballot in January 2008. We'll have a choice to approve that or not approve it. If it is approved, that will reduce our tax further. We estimate that it'll be about a 15% reduction in the county's tax roll, and it'll probably be similar for the city. So basically looking at a 5% cut this year and a 15% cut next year with referendums or unanimous votes. Next year you can once again override that and gain those 15% revenues back. However, to gain you can go up to 2/3 of the decrease. So we could gain 10 of that 15% back by a 2/3 vote elected body. To go beyond that, you need a unanimous body or a referendum. So I just wanted to lay that out as a framework to show you, to give you an idea of how we ended up where we are. Basically, I just want to go over a summary of the incentive package. The first item is that the city and county would jointly purchase the current property for Piper of a cost of $20 based on the appraisals. Then we would jointly provide funding for $17 million to add an additional manufacturing facility there to enable them to expand their operations. Both of those together are $40 million that would be funded through a joint bond issue, and I'll get into details of that later. Then this county would lease back the facility rent-free to Piper for a term of 8 years. In year 9, would still be a subsidized lease payment of $2.5 million a year, and then in year 10, it's up to $3.4 million a year for the lease payment. At that time, the lease payment would cover the debt service on the $40 million bond issue as proposed. So it's basically that first 8 years, the city and the county are making up that debt service payment, and year 9 it's subsidized. Year 10, Piper basically pays the cost of the debt service, and in years 11 through 30, the lease payments would be adjusted, would be indexed DI, so they would grow with inflation. The next piece of the incentive package is a $600,000 local jobs program that's in place on an ongoing basis. They would be eligible for that, and since they're in the enterprise zone, they're eligible for $1,000. Uh, Finally, and that is spread over a 5-year period, it would be $120 a year over a 5-year time period for $600,000. Finally, to wrap up the city and county incentives, we've offered the city manager, county administrator, and a dedicated project manager to oversee the permitting process and kind of walk the project through to expedite completion. So the total of those city and county incentives is about $40.6 million, the benefit of that. In addition to those city incentives, there are some other incentives from their partners process. The state of Florida Fund has offered $20 that they would provide to Piper. Indian River Community College has made a very generous offer to provide training facilities, support, training programs to Piper employees, exclusives of labs, multi-purpose labs, and manufacturing labs with lathing machines, tool making machines, CNC metal fabrication, all those types of things, and provide training to all levels of employees at Piper, and that has a value of $175,000. You add on to that about $15 million in additional capitalized interest, value of the free rent plus interest on the bonds, for a total value this incentive package from city and county sources and the other sources of $500,000 million, which if you include the capitalized interest, that would be $76.5 million. Next, we're showing the impact on a typical house of the proposed bond financing. With the city under one alternative would go into the $40 million bond issue as partners. And this shows the impact on the tax unincorporated areas and the other cities throughout the county, Sebastian, Indian River Shores, and Orchid. Basically, the county general fund tax bill on a $250,000 home, $25,000 homestead exemption. Currently, the taxes are $718. This would increase with the bonds to $744.20, an increase of about $26 on that tax bill, or a 3.64% increase county's general fund taxes. Next is the city of Vero typical homeowner. The same scenario, $250,000 home with a $20,000 exemption. Those taxpayers pay the county general fund taxes in addition to the city general fund taxes. So the first line, county general fund, that would be an increase of $26, and the city general fund their tax bill increase from $182 to $651.87, an increase of $107 per year, 35%. If you total the two together, it's about a 16% increase combined. Now, basically, I want to go back to the tax issue because as we were going through this, there were a couple different options. We could do some revenue bonds, the city and county into a joint revenue bond issue, split the dollar amount, and buy that to the general funds as typical house scenarios just illustrated. With the tax reform, doing this Piper project would put both the city and the county in a situation where we would have to place the tax rates on the ballot and go through a voter referendum to levy the taxes that would be necessary to fund this in the package. Another alternative for funding this $40 million bonds is a general obligation bond issue for $40 million. Initially, when we were working through this process, we had mentioned the possibility of GO bonds. Piper said that would, or their consultant said that would not meet the time frame because it takes 90 days to have a voter referendum. They'd like to make it before then. So we were kind of. They were basically telling us that was going to be problematic. So we were looking at this bond issue. However, the legislation that's proposed right now puts a situation where either direction we go, you're looking at a voter referendum, which isn't a bad thing. It gives the voters choices, gives them lets them decide, this is, do we want to do this? Do we not want to do this? Piper had said that it was a timing issue that they were concerned about. However, we've been put into a situation where either way we go, looking at a referendum, so we're not going to meet the time frame based on that. So what we're proposing is to go to a GO bond where the county would place on the referendum for all counties referendum for the general obligation bonds. Let the voters decide, and if that passes, then we would issue the bonds, and basically that has a benefit for reasons. If you do GO debt, it costs your interest costs are lower. Financial markets like GOs, they're more secure. They're backed by the faith and credit of the government, and also it's a GO bond. The caps don't apply to them, so it gets out of that situation of having referendums not just this year, but maybe in following years too, after we've already committed to this Piper project, which is a very problematic situation. It also gets where we have one referendum for all countywide voters rather than the city having to have a referendum to raise your tax rate and the county having to have a separate referendum to raise the county's tax rate, and gets it to one referendum. If you go to the next slide, you can show the impact on the tax bill for all county taxpayers countywide. Basically, it would be on that $250,000 an increase in a separate millage line has voted GO debt of $52.06, which if you add that to the county general fund, that would be about a 7.3% increase from current. This would distribute the burden to all residents of the county equally, and that's what staff recommendation is this time, is to move forward with those GO bonds, have the referendum, provides the lowest tax we can get, and at this time I'd turn it back over to, for any questions or comments.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions of Jason Brown?
Yeah, I have a question to ask you, Jason. With the legislature is doing, did you show this? It does not show the impact of that at the same.
Right. What's happened is both the city and the county are in a situation where we have to cut our back from current year amount with a unanimous vote of the boards. So it would be very difficult to fund the incentive in next year's budget without having to go to a voter referendum.
Otherwise, when you look at a typical House tax bill, you're doing the impact what the legislation is. We think they're going to do. Right.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We still are not sure what they're going to do. That's still could change as the session hasn't ended, as far as I know, as of last night. But the bill hasn't been by the government. But there would be likely a decrease in that typical homes tax bill, the city general fund and the county general funds as a result of caps. So yes, you're correct. Those numbers don't decrease. That would kind of offset the cost of the bonds.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Davis.
I guess in looking at this, it appears we put a lot of effort in putting forth something we said they don't. And I don't want to get critical of anybody's efforts here, but they said they did not have the time for the voter-approved time frame, the 90 days. And I guess I got a couple questions. First of all, how many of these are still in the race, officially or unofficially? Do we have any idea?
We can't get a answer from the no, because we can't get a straight answer from the site consultant.
Four others up there, so there's still five. Nothing's changed. Well, it was what was at the last one.
Excuse me.
We need to put this on record.
This has to be on the record, so you need a microphone.
I believe the email got the final dates the 26th to submit, not today, but 26th is the final date.
Well, I guess really we two options, and I don't mean it in a bad way, but everybody's, I think, is well aware that I'm not in favor of a government by applause measures and an issue like this, that putting forth something that Piper has said not want is what we're putting forward. We have two options. I see a plan. I'd like to see a plan that basically made it so that we could do this with a 4-to-1 without going to a referendum.
Can't do it. It's state law now. They changed the law.
No, I understand what you're saying, but if we don't, if I understand what I'm told here is, if we don't go below 5% below rollback, then that requires 4 majority. If we do not go above rollback, that requires a referendum. There's almost a 3-tier. Yeah, there's a 3 tiers here as far as what it would require. And if we have until the 26th, I'd like to see some figures on what it was to be able to go to that, to rollback with supermajority vote by boards, and then approach the state and say, let's best we can what Piper's asking. Because I don't know about anybody in here, but we got $20 million from the state without asking. Didn't ask. And now, for the specific Piper, as this started to come down. It wasn't whenever we had our legislative delegation meeting sitting in here. I didn't remember it coming up. I remember a call from state in Mayfield asking me what was going on in the dark for me, because it was still in the negotiation between the leaders that were in charge of that. It would seem to me that if we could take as step as we possibly can in the right direction and tell the state we're doing everything we can to have more help, or we will lose Piper because we're putting forth a package that they do not want.
We've done that.
And they know.
And no.
I think I'd like to, Jim Gabbard, my son, and everyone, we called and asked for a help from the state, and that's where the $20 million. When we saw the legislation come through, and you're right, we didn't want the referendum either. The counties didn't want it, the city didn't want the referendum, but we've been painted in that by the state on this in this legislation. If you will look, I don't know how the city of Vero Beach could put their forward. They would have to cut 35% plus another 2% of their general fund budget. I think that's ability and unrealistic. And we have placed calls to all the state legislators, as I've placed several calls, and said, with this, it's really tied our hands with her. And I was fortunate enough to get a call back from Senator Pop, and he said he was going to looked into it and said, Joe, you're right. Unless you go back, you are going to go to referendum. Then we look, if we didn't do a GO, we're both going to have to go to referendum, 2 years in a row. And that's an impossibility. I wish they thought this bill out before they put it in front of us. If you're looking at all the articles down south, Plant Lucy's just reneged on a bond issue. They're getting sued by a developer. It's creating havoc in the bond market right now. We like this. I mean, we'll try and do anything the board tells us to do, obviously, and the council. But I don't know how. You better get ready to lay off substantial amounts of people to make up $4 million.
The state leading by, because how much did they cut tax revenue?
They increased $1 billion.
That's not. Yeah, they increased.
And if, I don't know, and maybe it's just because of how the negotiations have gone, and it is an awkward situation as far as having the and I'm not funny. I mean, I understand this is, I guess, how the negotiation or something like this occur. And I understand we've come forward with a package that we think will work, and I do appreciate that. But I don't know if there's been aside for it $20 million, and I'm not asking the stakeholder all of it, because it's probably more important to us, or just as important as it is the state of Florida. And in light of the changes and that taken shape in the past, that will take shape in the next few days. I don't know. I feel very uncomfortable without swinging one more time at least, or throwing the ball one more time, and let know this is exactly what we're going to do. We'll show them that we're going to meet what they had asked us to do at the state level, as far as hitting that percent. and tell them we're doing everything at the local level that had asked us to in the special legislation, and say, the consequence of that, this is where our hands are tied, and it's going to adversely affect our efforts in Piper here, and we're not blaming anybody. As far as blaming the state, I don't want to. I think we need to be in partnership with the state as much as possible, because quite frankly, I don't see this forward and be coming in from any other way without additional help from them, and posture up and to blame it on them in the special session, I'd be counterproductive.
I'm not blaming. I paraphrase exactly what you said. I said that I've left now, I'm not blaming you, but here's a situation you helped us with Piper because of your new act. Please look at it. I have said that. And I'm not trying to blame anyone. I think the state's trying to make everyone accountable at the local level, and I don't have any problem with the 5 and 7% cut. You add that, and then you add debt on top of it, and that's the predicament we're in. And the final decision is the commissions. This is what staff has worked out. We've looked at it. It's a real hardship. We could obviously, what you tell us to do, you can say when 57% of my general fund is constitutional officers, be ready to back them, because they've already told me that's where they're going. I've sat down with them and told them my predicament. I have with them said to try and keep Piper. Got to cut the budget. I was told, two of them, we will see you in the governor's office.
Well, the other thing I might add, that stating facts and pointing out inconsistencies isn't being negative, and it's not blaming anyone. Some errors have been made, and quite frankly, from the beginning, no matter what the legislature was going to do, it'd be worse than we had. In fact, one of the things that created this entire problem with the taxing and the inequity is Save Our Home. They increased the gap. Instead of the gap going like this now, it's going to go like this. That's right. And the bottom line is that, other than from what I'm hearing and what I understand the laws and the way this is interpreted now at this early date, the only other option we have is to go to the state, because that's where the money is now. And we need to petition the state to kick in more to save Piper, because it's an advantage for the state of Florida to have Piper also. Spinoff isn't just in our county, it's across the state. When you've got 1,100 employees and a $100 million payroll, it's a huge advantage to keep them in Florida. And the other thing that I think the state's going to have to deal with is, I don't even know how the state in general is going to encourage business from out of state to come because of the situation that's been created. And I don't particularly agree with government paying businesses to be any place. That's a market that's been created over the last 30 years. And if you want them, you got to play by those rules. Market that's been created. We don't have an option in that. So I think that this is the beginning of some of the problems we're going to have in building an economic base in Florida and getting business to come here. I hope I'm wrong, but that's my take on it. But I don't think we're trying to blame. It's just that I agree with finding ways to cut taxes and for government to be more fiscally conservative, responsible. But we've got a situation here, we're going to lose one of our absolutely major employees, and our hands are tied. So the state's got to jump in here.
And I guess, and I suppose it may be semantics, but I think it's extremely important how we ask the question or how we approach state. It's not can they or will they us. It's more what to do to get more help out of them. And that may be if one back and looking at our budget, show them exactly what we have in front of us. I don't, but I think I can understand we're making some tough. And I understand, Mr. Baird, exactly what you're talking about. Constitutionals, and quite frankly, it would smack of I don't want to say errors, but of hypocrisy for sure, in the event that we had constitutionals go to the governor and the governor approve their budget. And I'm ready to take that one on if they need it. So But I don't know. We've got a plan in front of us. Probably have the best plan we have, or that we can put together in front of. I'm just not sure if it's going to be the plan that's going to, and that's really the one that I'd like to have.
Just to interject real quick, Sandra, okay? During the project meetings, the state of Florida had 2 representatives from Enterprise Florida in most of our meetings. Fully aware of all the funding, gone through this with them. They've called the governor, they've talked to them, they've seen to see if there's could be. I mean, this has been really trying for that and trying to get the state to spend more money. In fact, I think they started out at $10 million. We got them up to $20 million, and that's just they can go. And then there's something else for research and development, and now they're backing away from. They were looking at another $10 million through a university to help research, and that didn't pan out. And so the state is quite a bit from that, and they're still at their 20, but that's all we can get. We have really pushed it. And then Joe, like Mr. Barry, he has talked about this new state law they asked him what a corner it is into, and they have. They've done it. And there's nothing. They've got legal opinion and everything. We try to see whatever way around it and see if we can bypass it. There's no way. Sandra, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I want to personally thank everyone on the dedicating team. I believe you beyond the call of duty, and it was about 6 months that you've been this. It's been a long time.
Seems like it.
And if it's any leaf to turn over, I thank you over. I expect you did. And I think we've come to this point where to make a hard decision. And we've come to the end of the time frame that they've given us. So the package you put to us, understanding what we're legally, this is the best option. And I think going to the voters in a referendum as soon as possible would be the way to go. And the option bonds, that's the best way to go.
Thank you.
I'd like to just
Mr. Davis.
Thank you. I almost wonder whether or not we would be better off approaching with a bird in the hand instead of anything. And maybe $20 million and whatever we can do without having to go to voter approval. It'd be half the package that we may be able to offer, but perhaps they'll look at that more favorably. In addition to this, approach them with both hands and say, here, you want. That may be more beneficial because I'm not sure that we have a plan together unless we go to voter approval and go through that process. Is there that thought? I'm just floating that idea, and that just kind of hit me that basically we $1 million that I'm not sure any other community's putting forward in hard cash. I don't know if they go through the voter process or not.
There's hard cash other communities.
And that's the only hard cash we're putting up is only if we voter approval.
Mr. Dave, Mayor, may I comment?
Go ahead, Gabbard.
2 things. First of all, the state of Florida, our legislative delegation and the governor's office have been very aware of how the negotiations have been moving along. They know what's going on. And I personally have talked to all of our delegation regarding this issue. I know just on a number of occasions. I talked to Ralph Papa last night at 8 o'clock. They know what it is, and they know what our offer is going to. We've met many times with Enterprise Florida and their representatives. They have a direct liaison with the governors, and they have told us that the governor is very keenly aware of our issues are and how the thing is moving along. They want this thing to work, Avi. And we have said, look, here we are, a small county, and in a situation where 130,000 people, and we're carrying twice the burden of the state of Florida, and they're offering $20 million. I mean, that is not significant compared to what our taxpayers are going to have to do. Plus, and as Vice Mayor Abel has pointed out to me a number of times, just the sales tax alone on $200 million annually at $14 million or $14 million, however you want to, wherever the plane hold, is significant. I mean, annually for the course of 10 years, we're making all this contributions from our taxpayers, is they're socking that way. So the state of Florida has a great deal to lose, but they have not moved off time on this thing. Now, a little glimmer of hope at our last meeting with Interwest Florida the day before yesterday. They know this. We met with Dan Weber, and he said that we obviously have a gap, and I'll be very frank with you. Piper has told us that an additional $10 million, and they want an additional $850,000 in sessions for utilities and to help offset insurance costs. Well, those two have to come out of general fund revenue, and we just can't do it. We do not have the money to do that. So, and we talked actually in the last meeting during our presentation that we were going to look at costs and try to help them with utilities, but we just cannot do that. It's on the financial situation of the city county, and obviously we would ask for some help county on those issues. We don't have another $10 million. This has been a negotiation. Wesley, we've been negotiating with these people, and I don't know if they could or not. This is our, and we worked on this thing till late last night. We've been massaging the numbers, trying to come up with different alternatives, different resources, and we thought of your idea of trying to give them our best offer. We're still going to have to borrow some money, and the general obligation bond was from day one because of the preferable interest rate. We get it's less money. But we have worked this thing over, and Joe is the cheapest guy in this whole county, and he's taught me some things for the last 2 or 3 weeks, and this is what we can do. And God bless Penn-Lean. They have been right in the middle of this thing and worked their hearts out on this, and they want this to happen. And we've been getting a lot of support from the Chamber of Commerce and the community, but I frankly don't know how else to do it. And this tax reform issue could not come at a time. This thing has basically knocked our legs out from under us, and I think we need to make this understands this tax situation. Tallahassee's the same position we are. They're still in it. They're going to be faced with the same thing. And I saw a news article weeks ago from where city councilman said, if this tax reform goes through, Tallahassee's out. And there's a quote in the Tallahassee rat. So to move forward, we've got to put our best effort out there, and I think Piper has to understand. If they want to stay here like they say do, and I think we have to believe what the top brass, Mr. Bass and his staff are telling us. They want to be in very. They're going to have to be flexible and have to give us a chance to pass this thing through and get our citizens on board. This is an easy regardless. We're going to have to work to educate the public, get them on board, and Joe and I have already been talking about going to sell this thing, and that will not. It'll take all of you and all of the members of our city to get behind this and sell it to people in our community. We're going to have help from Fells, Bastion, Orchid, the Shores. We'll have to get their councils on board. This is of critical importance to our community, and I appreciate what you're saying, but there's no easy way to do this. There's no magic bullet. There's no magic stream of money that's down there we can just tap to and do this thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gale. Any other comments?
Could say something.
Vice Mayor Eagle?
What Jim said is correct, and the figures that we have my understanding is we haven't been able to get any figures. We don't know where the people live whether they live in the county or not. We also don't know anything other about the sales, but just in rough figures, if you take the sales of their present operation for 5 years, which it probably will take them to move, if we were to move, and then if we were successful in getting the pipe jet operation, add what they say that might be. The state of Florida is looking to collect $200 to $300 million in the next 15 years in sales taxes. And I think for the legislature to put us in the bind and other places in the bind that they have by this hurried property tax issue, which solves very little of the problem, I would hope that if there's any possibility that the so-called special session is still in session, whether by phone or by whatever, that maybe there's some kind of an exception that could be made, recognizing this loss of sales tax, so that we might be able to even consider a dual option, like Mr. Davis suggested, what we can do today, and then another one, what we intend to do, which shows the what our incentives are, and we don't even know whether any of these other people, the states or locales that are offering this money, have any other voter approval issues. We don't know that. We've been kept in the dark on this stuff. So I think the other thing is we're talking about a referendum possibility that is needed by the current legislative action. If Piper would have moved, people have estimated that it would cost them $20 to $30 million in relo expenses. That is nothing that they would have here. Also, there's no way that they could have a seamless move even for the present operation. The estimate of what it would take them to set up something else and then move from here is probably 6 to 18 months. Any referendum we're talking about, folks, is like 2 or 3 months. So it would seem to me that if they are interested in staying here, that it's worth the effort and worth the wait to give us the opportunity to go through the regimen that we're forced to do by the legislature, unless we can get some special exemption. So that if we came up with one proposal, as Wesley suggested, there's any hope of a special exemption, then that could maybe be on platter by the next week or two. Maybe a governor's declaration, and then we also maybe set up the second option, which is voting for the referendum, and that's the last thing I wanted to do to begin with. So, and that's the last thing our legislators, the 4 local legislators, say every time they're up here for a legislative meeting. The people elected you to make the decision. Don't go to referendum. I remember that every time they say it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, I do have some other comments and take a little slightly different bent on this thing. We've gone over a lot of the financial stuff, but other issues going on here. Number one, that is a Superfund site. Piper is still on the hook to handle that. There's been a new agreement reached with the EPA. My understanding of that was in today's paper, but I got some other information yesterday as well, that they are out for doing some new technique to resolve all that. The issue that I have is we buy the building, and you know, we're trying very hard to keep these people employed. But Piper has said that they're transportable. They said we make our own tooling, and it said to me we can put it in case we can leave here. And I agree with you, Mr. Abel, that that would take some time, but they said they are transportable. That's what they're telling us when they did that. I don't see that Piper is really tied into the community other than through their people. There's not a whole bunch of shops around here building stuff for them like most industries have. And again, that says they're transportable. If we buy this facility and give them rent-free, which I really have heartburn over, and they somehow or other are able to break that and leave, we are stuck with some very large buildings to do something with. It is not like a strip mall where we can put some other tenants into it, or a bank building that we now have to, that somebody's built, and you can, I mean, several old buildings around it are now furniture stores or fabric stores and things like that. This isn't like that. These are very buildings. And we would be stuck with very large buildings on an airport runway.
we're going to understand, we
don't
would,
know what the-
they would put a the contract, that's the next thing. Once it's approved and the board's approved, then the attorneys would sit down and lock it in. This way, it would protect the city and county. If they should move, then they would have to either buy it back at a certain rate or whatever, but.
And I have a great concern over, what that was solid. We don't want another thing like the Dodgers that said, oh, well, we could.
Well, I think by experience.
Hopefully we
really have. All right, Mr. Day.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to city staff and our county staff. I know you've all worked very hard on this, and you've all put in many hours. I've been in contact with the manager quite a bit over the last months about this business venture, and it is a business. And I think the incentive package right now is about the best that we can do. They've turned over the rocks. They've looked for the money. Our manager's been on the phone numerous times asking for money, asking this one, asking that one. Piper right now, they're here. They're working. It's very important to all of us that they stay. And the decisions actually, this is a really good incentive package. As government officials, we have to follow state guidelines on some new rules here, the way the taxes are going to be divvied out and the way the bond situation works. And by the way, the bond market's not doing very well. The details, we still have details that have to work out. The incentive package is going to move forward. The Piper Corporation, they'll either accept it or not accept it. And then we have to work out the details. The manager has put me on numerous occasions of the Superfund that's out there and the plume that's on that property out there, and we're moving and everything else that's been going on. There's a long back history on that. And neither the city or county, we don't want to be liable for this. So we have to really look at this stuff. We have to be very careful what we're doing. Of course we want Piper to stay here. And to see the incentive package move, and I think it's about the best we can do at this time. I think staff, and again, I've been in contact with our manager numerous times with my concerns and things that I'd like to see happen. And I think we've done about the best we can right now. And I think it's time forward. They put the deadlines on us as a county and city when they wanted this completed. So here we are. Thank you.
Yeah, we just got, this is our extension period, and it's over with. Anybody else like to make any comments from the City Council? County Committee, Peter?
Yeah.
Commissioner O'Brien?
Thank you. Kind of looking at this as what's the best way to get a win here. And we have to go to voters for a referendum, or we have to ask the state legislature to fund money. Both are not easy ways to go. I think a voter referendum, if we try to fast track this and have something come up in 90 days, we're talking the end of September, 1st of October, and we're going to be asking folks to vote on a tax increase before they get their tax bill showing a decrease. So I'm just not sure that'll fly. I mean, a lot of people are already talking that they're not happy with the tax plan the legislature's come up with. They're already full of these loopholes. And I think going to ask them to increase taxes before they even seen a dollar benefit isn't going to fly. So, Commissioner Davis said maybe we just let our budget as most we can and see how much we can come up with at a 5-0 vote to spend, and see if the state will come up with the rest. I just don't find them going through given the current climate. So, and we can make that second option, as Commissioner said, but I think our best chance for a win is to come up with the most we can spend, everything we can spend, what we can up to the, and I'll tell you, a lot of people will be mad that we're increasing to go to 5-0 vote. That's going to have a lot of feathers too, but politically I'm willing to take that heat to keep Piper here. And I think we just have to go that way, and then tell the legislature, they spent hundreds of millions of dollars to bring Tory and scripts and
On a hope.
On a hope, and here this is a retainment, and I think Kemper Abel pointed out it's $10, $12, $14 million a year of sales tax revenue, plus the increase with the jets. The state's looking to lose a substantial revenue source if they let this go. So I'd rather we spend what we can on a 5-0 vote and tell legislatures they got to help make up the rest. But I don't think a ref's going to fly.
One of the things I have found in this community is that they are willing pocketbook when it counts. And I have faith in the people in this community, and I have faith if you explain this to them exactly. I have fear about that. It takes the time frame to do this. And if Piper's under this time that they put under, then that's the way I see legally we have no out, even if we tighten our budget. Is that correct?
Let me say something. It's a 30-year bond, and if we do what Commissioner Ryan said, it takes care of year one if it passes. But by year 2, you have to have another election, and sooner or later, one of those votes will not happen, and then you're in a difficulty. Your bond will either go bad, or you'll have to raid your general to an extent that Joe has already said can't. Our legal side has looked at this very closely, and we believe the only legal way to keep repayment is to have a general obligation bond by vote of people. The senator last night talked to read that, but he didn't say what he said about the general obligation bond. I would like him, maybe for the record, to say that now.
He said that would be it's the only way we can do this. I mean, and I can tell you, Mr. O'Brien, we can't cut 50, 60, 70 positions and could do the usual. I mean, you're talking. I mean, and we haven't looked at that issue. I mean, we're cutting our now just to make up the 7% that we're going to lose, and we're already into 10, 15 employees. I mean, so if we do that option, I don't know where we'll be.
Let me clarify. That wasn't trying to. We had to cut enough to get to the full $40 million. I'm saying cut can, and whatever that dollar amount is what we're going to be offer. The tax caps do not apply to jet. So will we have to go back every year?
No.
I'm sorry.
We'd have to go just once for the GO debt, and it would be exempt from all of the tax cap requirements. That's why I have made a recommendation. The dilemma we're in right now is that the state has two things. That one says that increase our over rollback, we have to go to referendum in any given year. So we looked at the revenue initially. We weren't going to have to go, but with this new legislation, we will. Second thing is right on its heels is that super home debt. It's going to, which is kind of crazy because we're trying to solve the problem of the commercial and businesses, and we're shifting it to them. And that would cut the roll 15%. And I'm not being critical of the state, and I help all the people that keep taxes low in the state. And you know, Senator Pruitt was to get 10 million, 90 million. We've been on the phone constant with these people. And when we saw the new bill come through, Senator Pruitt, a referendum will probably kill this deal. About a month ago, he was on the phone. I think he called Jim Gabbard too and said we were talking about kill the deal. Well, then the new language comes out requires it. So we can't. You take a look at the city; they cut 36%. You add this in there, 43% of their budget, and I think that's an impossibility to think someone could that and keep services. And it's a predicament we're in. I mean, I could look at my reserves, and those are one-time money, and I couldn't come up with $40 million. People say, well, and I've heard this quote in the community, what happened to all the money the counties, all this? They're all in legal, they're separate fund that can only be used for certain legal purpose. And, I can't use my utility money, I can't use my impact fee money incorrectly, and those are all have to be used for roads and specific purposes. But I have to look at the general fund and my optional 1-cent sales tax and my MSTU. But there isn't enough money. If you add those all together, and I depleted all, would not be a good decision. Depleted them totally. Took all my reserves, depleted them. I couldn't come up in those funds, That would be just a poor decision. We had a hurricane. We'd have to borrow money every year from October 1 to December to get tax money. It would be a poor decision. I could look at you. It won't. You look at you depleting summer reserves, but it won't come to the 40 million. I can guarantee it won't come anywhere close, unfortunately.
Let me say, too, at least from my perspective, the committee that's been working on this for several months has put together the various players, their consultants, trying to find out the best we could from what other cities are doing and what we need to offer through negotiation to stay in the game and perhaps win having Piper here. An awful lot of meetings have gone into that, and a lot of them was the two administrators and Chamber. And then, but the bottom line is I think to try and cut and then go to them with what we're offering forward, first it's going to take some time to figure that out, and secondly, I personally believe it'll work. Big business today have ties to the community. The Dodgers are a prime example of that. Malley was here. He loved Vero Beach. They had a tie to the community. Once it's been sold a couple of times, it's all about the bottom line. And most of these big corporations, you know, wherever their corporate office is, New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles, the bottom line in the profit and loss statement. And we're in a situation where we're either competitive to keep them or we're not. So if we aren't able to put something on the table competitive with the other city, there is little doubt in my mind we're going to lose Piper. And it's not about Piper being disloyal or their leadership or anything else. They are in business, they have stockholders, and that's who they're looking out for, just like we're looking out for our community. And if we don't have that ability to negotiate an equitable agreement here, they're not staying. It's that simple. And I don't think to go in and say, look, we can only do this much. They may say thanks for your effort, but somebody's going to pay more. That's where they're going to end up. And we'll take consideration, retraining of employees, how many will move, what's the workforce where they're going. I mean, these people know their business, they know what they want. And Piper is by a holding company. And that's what it's all about. It's about the bottom line, profit for their stockholders, and it's all about money. So we've either got to be in the game or not waste our time. We just absolutely got to be competitive.
Okay. Thank you, Gary. I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor.
Joe, Commissioner Fletcher.
I just thank the negotiating team. A lot of us were put forward, and we need to go forward. And as far as the $20 million, I might be able to explain how that might have come forward, maybe at a later date. But I thank you. A lot of negotiating has taken place, a lot of which we were not privy to. The team was set forward. Fortunate curves in the road have taken place, and we've just discussed them all. We need to move forward. I think that any delay in the process would only cause this negotiation to have been all in vain. If we don't go forward, we will not know if Piper will stay with us. We need to move forward, and I believe that in 90 days that might inspire in the referendum, I think we can make that up in the other ways while they're ruling for the 18 months, so that we can, and I'm confident that we can do that. Should I stand corrected, Joe?
I feel we can make a very good, sell the sales tax in 45 days. I've got an agenda to sell the sales tax. I've sold it twice in 45 days on voter referendum. I think everyone would be on board. We had all the nonprofits. We had all the civic associations. We had all the professional realtors, the AGs, all the council. I think everyone would be on board. We don't like this at all. I mean, this is really hard for us to recommend this because they haven't told us that a GO or a voter referendum would hurt the deal. It was the hardest decision. We started looking at the new legislation saying, I can't believe this has happened to us at 12th hour. It's a predicament we don't like to be in. But we're trying to offer, they're very important to the community. There's no doubt. Piper is our big employer. We're doing everything we can to keep them. I think it's the only option. Unfortunately, the corner we're painted into. I'd like to point out, and it's been brought up about the Dodger deal. It's been brought up a couple times. I want to record straight, since I was the head negotiator, take full responsibility for it. The deal was not a bad deal. We paid $17 million for it. The state gave us $500,000 towards debts. $350,000 towards debtors comes from tourist tax, not local people. The county only pays $350,000 towards it. On an annual basis, it's been our best state investment. It kept it from getting developed. We reached in 2000 the right to leave, but if they leave, they have to pay the bond off and have to give money. So it hasn't been. It was a tension project, and we did retain them for 5 years. Don't lose anything. We get paid back. They leave.
What do you think the real estate's worth now, Jim?
I have no idea, but it was great. I mean, I've gotten criticized, reasonably criticized in a letter about, it's funny, all partners until things go bad, and then you start. I don't have any partners anymore, and so I think it's a great deal, and I want that clear. I think great deal, the Dodger deal, and it should get critically. It has been a great deal for this community, and I stand behind it.
Maybe you won't be subjected to criticism when this goes to referendum on this negotiation.
Well, we'll always decide. I think we've done as long as we know we've done everything we can, and I think that's what we're trying to do. We will. I would love to be different. If there was a way this could be different. I mean, this 12th, I have this requiring the vote's been very hard. I think the only way out, and I think Piper should give us the opportunity, a chance. Give us the 90 days. We're willing to go out there and sell it, and I think the voters will listen. And sell it hard. Piper's been tremendous to this community, and we forget it. It's our biggest employer. It's where we rely on construction. It's our only manufacturing in this county, only major manufacturing. We've got 3 other constructions down, tourism's down, and agriculture's down. 3 major industries are down right now, and need diversity. And Piper diversifies our economy, and so we'll do everything we can to sell this. I just hope they will take this offer, and I know that they have said. I will make it clear that their site consultant said that, and so then had to go to vote. They killed the deal. I want to disclose that to you, but we have no option.
Oh,
Thank you.
Jet 1 is anticipated in 2010.
Yeah, I think I'm talking about the first one's coming off the line.
Jet 1 rolling out of the line in 2010. Is that correct? We can make up the 90 days.
All right, let me throw in something. Piper and Honda Jet have just got 2 aircraft hangars in Illinois, according to they went and partners into sale parts for the new Piper Jet. They're moving forward. I mean, they have been moving forward with us. We final deal, so they are doing their thing. Before we get a motion, I think I have to have Penny or Helene. They facilitated all our meetings from the very beginning, and they put together a lot to get the county and city together, and they organized. We met at their chamber boardroom, and I just want to thank them, number one, for hospitality and their hard work. And Helene did a lot of research and questions that we would have at one meeting. She would come back with the answers in the next. And I don't know, either of you like to say something, add anything you would like?
Well, I would like to thank the people who were participating on the team with us. We had some great supporters. We had good quests. We gave this a really good shot. And I know on the part of the chamber, it has been almost 100% of our activity for Helene and I for the past, well, since December, since December. I hope that as we move forward with this, as I see it looks like it's going to be going, I ask each of the 5 commissioners, each of the 5 city councilmen, and the city managers, the attorneys, the budget officers, to personally champion this cause, to take this upon yourselves to get out there and educate the public if this is the way we're going to be going. I think that as you vote for this issue today, actually going to be saying that to the people who elected you, and we can count on you to be those champions. Again, I want to thank everyone who's been involved in the process. I really do appreciate your help.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Not till we're done here, Frank. Before we will. All right. Any other discussion before we move into action?
One other thing I'd like to say, our citizens of our county and cities, I think they're very well informed and following this very closely. We get asked a lot of questions, and I think we have a community that cares keeping this company. And I think it'd be great, as this is moving forward, to involve them. It's their dollars, the taxes, they pay the bills, and they should have a say-so on this. And let's get the incentive package moved forward. Everybody's very hard on it. And let's just step forward and get this thing going. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to add, too, that somebody reminded me that during this whole process, the last 6 months, the committee has warned the city. We could discuss what we were talking about, how much the incentive package is going to be, and I want the reporters from the Journal, because they respect our wishes, and try to get us, to talk to them and tell them, so look, we can't discuss it. I mean, we're under a commitment to the Consensus and Piper that we not discuss the issue, and they've cooperated with us during this time. So again, I want to thank them all for that. Vice Chairman?
Are you ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer countywide referendum to place up for general obligation bonds in the amount of $40 million to finance the Piper incentive package.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second, Mrs. Romay. And do we need to do this on city and county, or just put it on county? And
I think your motion would be in support of the case, because the county is the one that's going to issue this.
Okay. So we'll take their first and they'll take their motion, their second, and
then you do your own.
Wesley second.
Okay.
Wesley
second. And then do I from the to coincide with that from the city council?
I'll make that motion.
I have Mrs. Romay, Ms. Mary Aboken. Okay. Any discussion motion? And do you want to do this roll call? Or you want to do this regular?
Are we doing the?
We'll do the county vote first.
The chairman should be handling this.
Gary.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Okay. And the same with the council. Motion, you have a second. There's no discussion. All those in favor signify saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Our motion passes 5-0. And okay, that's it. I know that this is going to be a good education for the public and for us to go out there, and I have public to also talk to your friends and neighbors and to talk to Piper and Valper and how definitely need their economic impact. I will. I think Commissioner O'Brien will say a couple words, but I will allow some comments from the public. We have a little bit of time if somebody to make some comments, and we'll do this. Commissioner O'Brien, did you want to make a statement before I move to public?
Mr. Mayor, Administrator Baird just would like to point out that something comes up between now and whenever we'll have another special call meeting to deal with any late breaking news.
Okay. Mr. Chairman. So, any question for Vice Mayor Abel?
I was going to ask the similar thing to Peter O'Brien. In other words, if anything happens that Joe can work out with the legislature, do we need to make another motion to take care of that accommodation if we get an exception?
All we'd have to do is get the chairman and the mayor to call a special meeting.
Plus, they've already been authorized to do everything it takes to get this deal done. Meeting.
Okay.
Yeah,
Commissioner Rule.
earlier we talked about when you could do the election. I just got a text message from Kay, Supervisor of Election. She said 90 days notice, she'll do the election anytime we want. She needs 90 days from when we notify her.
All right. Any other questions or comments from County Commission or the City Council? Right, and I know what you're going to talk about, but come on up. Use the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Frank Zork, 95 20th Avenue Village. Resident here for 49 years. I'm kind of adding a little bit of comment to Fish's that came out earlier. I am here because of reading in the Press Journal article covers several issues about a Piper deal. No doubt Piper has economic impact for Vero with its available jobs. I am certain about buying Piper and building for them, spending tax public dollars on whatever option is attempted. I just want to remind you of some problems that may be in play if they stay, sell, or move. I wrote the Environmental Protection Agency in Atlanta questioning, with the change of ownership, who is responsible for the yet reclaiming cleanup Piper's major TCE chemical spill. I sent copies of my information from EPA to this council. This month, June 16, 2007, EPA notified Piper that although they have tried to clean up this contamination, the actions were not efficient, and they may require additional methods of remediation that could take up to 2 to 10 years. My concern is who will be responsible for these costs, estimated to be up to $2 million. They have already spent over $2 million cleaning and haven't achieved it. More important, a major Vero Beach water well providing public water supply was contaminated by Piper's toxic chemicals. I am making a serious inquiry to see if Piper or Vero Beach maximum investigation, or perhaps none, to explore the effects of homemade drying toxic contaminator which was in our water supply to every home in Vero and some in the county. I add, please read the current investigation going on about the same TCE chemical spill at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, which also occurred over 30 years ago. It appears thousands of persons were harmed with cancers and other illnesses they blame on tainted tap water with TCE. A $1 billion lawsuit has recently been filed by hundreds of persons claiming they have been affected over many years. Big question. Did our city or Piper this issue on contamination? And lastly, the Piper contamination and known stigma caused my loss of the Vero Beach Trade Center several hundred feet from the Piper spill, 60 feet from the close contaminated city water well 15. Piper was coddled, in my opinion, and favored by former city councilmen for years. Past city stated, March 6, 1996, at a council meeting, the city of Vero Beach could have fought Piper for every step of the way, but you all didn't do that. You wanted to help them. Today, how about the general public's concerns? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zork. Would anybody else like to speak before we adjourn the meeting? Any comments? Mr. Hart.
I want to thank you all for the action that you took today. I think it's, I wish we could have done it differently, but I unfortunately think this is the best we can do, and I appreciate that, and I understand that. I just want to ask you to do one thing as you go forward, and Penny said it, if you can be champions of this. You know, a lot of us, I know a lot of you are, we can talk it up in the community, and there's already a groundswell within the community. I've seen that. People taking it on themselves to pass flyers around, to put on their billboards, electronic messages. People haven't been asked to do that. We've recognized the importance of it. And that's a wonderful thing to see from our community, I think. If this is one thing that could bring us together as a community, and we're up to the community anyway, but they're a wonderful thing. So I'm going to look at it that way, as something that the community is going to work together to make happen. to educate the people about this, I think it's going to be important to show sources and uses. Every company, every entity has a sources and uses of revenue. Your uses are being unfortunately affected by mandated changes from Tallahassee. Your revenue sources are being mandated that you cut those, and those are being affected. On the other side, there are sources. You got sources of revenue to pay for your budget, and one of those sources is Piper. I've seen to show what it's going to cost the average homeowner to float a general obligation bond to keep Piper. What would it cost the average homeowner if Piper left? How much of your revenue would go away if Piper left? And if you don't cut the budget side to compensate for that revenue loss, where is that revenue going to come from the homeowner, or it's going to come from business. There'll be a tax effect of that. So I'd ask, as we educate people, let's not only show the $52 a year it's going to cost the average homeowner to keep Piper, to pay for this bond, let's show it cost if Piper leaves. It may be more than $52 a year. I have a feeling it would be. And personally, I'm happy to pay $50 a year to keep Piper here. Hell, I'll pay 4 times that to keep Piper here. I will.
We'll take it.
Find out. Where's Jim? You didn't hear me say that.
It's good for the bank, isn't it?
It's that important to me, and I think it's important to a lot of people here. So it's more than the cost of keeping Piper. It's the cost of losing Piper. And we're in the catbird seat as far as I'm concerned. And I hope Piper will understand that our hands are tied. That's all we can do. And as a community, if we start showing them that we really want them here, we talk it up, we champion keeping them here, I think we got at it.
So do I.
So thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Commissioner Davis.
Just real quick, if I could, Mr. Mayor, even if there's going to be some people that are against keeping Piper here, to me, this isn't about necessarily just keeping here. It's as Mr. Baird mentioned, about a diversified economy. There's not a working individual or a school-age child to have a community that has a diversified economy. Yeah. And if you want to look at it just past the economic, it's going to have to the human side into it. Sure. These are people that graduated Vero Beach High School from Sebastian River High School that I know personally, that because their parents did live here, they decided to leave. And they know, and they've called personally, and they know the job in this community like they have with Piper. Right. It might not be one of the $30,000 a year jobs. It might be one of the $15 jobs. Right. But still, they can't duplicate that anywhere. So it's not necessarily for Piper. It's for our community, for the opportunities for those who want to leave this community. And I just want to add that human element to it.
Well, I'm glad you did. I know it's preaching to the choir, but you're... Mr. Robinson.
Hi, I'm Pete Robinson, 315 Great Twig, Vero Beach, Florida. Jay mentioned one thing about if we lose, and I was head of the Council of 100 when Piper went down to 50 employees. And some of you weren't, some of you weren't here, but I can remember walking into those offices and all these desks were open to October 19, and this was in 1992. We had 18% unemployment. And 18% unemployment, $50 a year is 18% unemployment is a lot worse. And that's what we're going to face, because a lot of us live because of Piper putting that $100 million into this economy and how many times it flips over. And I think that's the thing we have to remember over. And the other point I would make is Gary said, well, I know in the last 30 years, that's what you have to do. You have to offer incentives to government or to business. Well, I can tell you this, that in 1906, my grandfather built a paper mill in North Carolina, and they offered him a lot of incentives. Now, that paper mill is still there in 2007. Hopefully, we can do the same thing here with Piper, because that's what makes the whole economy work. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Go ahead.
I just haven't spoken, and it's not because I didn't have anything to say. It's just I just haven't spoken, but I just want everybody to know that I am totally in favor of this. I have had the opportunity today to vote, but I would, and I already know that the city councils of Sebastian and Fellsmere have supported this council vote, and I know that the people of Vero Beach will support this referendum. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to mention, we do have with us today, and we did not introduce him earlier, but we have the city manager from Thunder, Jason Nonamaker. We have the city manager from Sebastian, and we've got Robert Bradshaw from Indian River, and so all our city managers are present. So I just say welcome, and I'm glad you were here to hear that we're to your support. Any other comments?
I'd just like to make one. We, as I mentioned before, we're behind this for the employees, but I do have reservations over buying that building. I'd like us to move forward. We're going to move forward, but it's not. I mean, it's still dragging 1 foot. I guess I'd put it that way.
Okay, thanks, Bill. All right, any comments from the public? Thank you all for coming. I now declare this meeting adjourned.